Today, Corey Richens, the Utah mother found guilty of murdering her husband by poisoning with fentanyl, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
And I'm so sorry that I can't bring him back. For you, for me, for our family. I can beat myself up all day about how I could have been a better person or made better personal choices. And I can understand and accept you boys being upset about those things. But murder? No, absolutely not. I will not accept that. And I will not be blamed for something I did not do.
She made her husband a cocktail, handed it to him herself, watched him drink it, and that was the last drink Eric Richens ever had. Now, I need you to really sit with that for a second, because this woman did not just decide to end her husband's life. She planned it. She prepared it. She served it with her own 2 hands. And then, when it was all over, when Eric was gone and the grief was still fresh in the air, she sat down and wrote a children's book about it. A children's book about grief, the grief she created. Moving on, in every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Eric and Corey Richens were a couple living in Utah, building what looked from the outside like a full life. There were kids. There was a house-flipping business. There were plans, goals, a future being built. Or so it seemed to anyone looking in. Eric had 3 sons, and like a lot of blended families, things were not always smooth. The boys did not have the easiest relationship with Corey. That detail matters. Hold on to it. On the surface, Corey was running a real estate business, flipping homes, moving money, the kind of hustle that looks like ambition. But underneath all of that, the business was drowning, millions of dollars in debt. And when you are that far under, the pressure does not stay quiet. It starts looking for a way out. Corey found hers, and it did not involve bankruptcy court. Here is what the people closest to Eric already knew that nobody else could see clearly yet. Eric had told someone close to him, that he would live through hell every single day of his life until his youngest son turned 18. Because he believed Corey was the most evil person he had ever met. His words, not mine, his. Let me tell you something. When a man says something like that about the person he shares a home with, that is not drama. That is a warning sign. And Eric felt it. He felt it deep enough to say it out loud. Meanwhile, Corey had already started building her next chapter. There was another man, a boyfriend, and there were vacation plans already in the works. Plans that had nothing to do with Eric and everything to do with the life she wanted after him. So you have a woman with a failing business, a man she reportedly despised, a boyfriend waiting in the wings, and a life insurance policy on her husband. Girl. The math was already mathing before Eric ever touched that drink. Prosecutors laid it out plainly. Corey Richens slipped fentanyl into a cocktail that she made for Eric. Not a small amount. Not a trace. 5 times the lethal dose. 5 times. She did not guess at the amount. She did not make a mistake. That level of fentanyl in one drink is a decision. A deliberate, calculated, no-going-back decision. Eric drank it, and he died. And Corey, with her boyfriend already lined up and her vacation already planned, moved forward. Now, what made this case blow up nationally, what made people stop scrolling and actually pay attention, was not just the poison or the affair or even the insurance fraud. It was what Corey did after. she wrote a children's book about grief for children dealing with loss. I need you to understand what that means. Her husband was dead. Her stepsons had just lost their father. And she sat down and authored a book about how children can process grief that she herself had caused. Like, at what point does a person look in the mirror and feel nothing? Make it make sense. That book is what put her name in headlines across the country. That is what made people look up from whatever they were doing and say, wait, what? When Eric Richens died, it did not immediately look like murder. That is the thing about fentanyl. It does not leave a mess. It does not break down a door. It works quietly, and when it is done, the person is simply gone. And for a while, that is exactly what Corey was counting on. But investigators started pulling threads. The life insurance policy was one. The debt was another. Then came the boyfriend. Then came the vacation plans that were already booked before Eric's body was even cold. Each one of those things alone might not have meant much. But together they started painting a picture that nobody could ignore. Forensics confirmed what the cocktail had done. The fentanyl in Eric's system was not an accidental exposure. It was not a recreational amount gone. Wrong. 5 times the lethal dose does not end up in someone's drink by accident. That level of concentration tells investigators everything they need to know about intent. And then there was the children's book. Now, investigators are not usually in the business of arresting people for being tone deaf. But the book became a piece of the larger story. A window into how Corey operated, how she presented herself publicly while something else entirely was happening behind the scenes in that home and in that marriage. Anyways, the evidence kept stacking, and at some point, the weight of it became impossible to walk away from. Corey Richens was arrested. The charges came down hard: aggravated murder, insurance fraud, forgery, 5 counts total. And from the moment this case hit the public, people were watching. Because this was not just a story about a woman who killed her husband. It was a story about 3 little boys who were caught in the middle of all of it, and what happened to them after their father was gone. Because here is what prosecutors and Eric's family made very clear during this trial. Corey's cruelty did not stop with the cocktail. After Eric died, she cut the boys off from Eric's family, from his sister, from his father, from everyone who had known and loved their dad. The people who could have held those children together during the worst time of their lives. Gone. Access denied. And it was not random. Eric's sister stood in that courtroom and described it as calculated and strategic. Corey used those boys as leverage. She threatened Eric's own father, told him he would not see his grandsons unless he pressured Eric's trustee to hand over the trust assets. She was using children as bargaining chips in a financial dispute, while those boys were grieving. And on top of all of that, she was feeding those children false information about Eric's family, so that when the authorities eventually stepped in and asked the boys where they wanted to go, they said they were afraid of Eric's family, afraid of the people who loved their father, because of what they had been told. Oh, so now the children are scared of the very people who were trying to reach them. That right there is its own kind of damage. In March, the jury came back. Guilty. On all 5 counts. The courtroom coverage was brief, but the weight of that verdict filled every inch of that room. The sentencing hearing was where everything came to the surface. One by one, people who loved Eric stood up and faced Corey directly. A counselor read letters written by the boys themselves. These were children putting words to something no child should ever have to put words to. One of them wrote that he was 9 years old when his dad was murdered. 9. And he told the judge clearly what he wanted: a life sentence for Corey. Not because he was angry in the way adults get angry, but because he had thought about it, and that was his conclusion. Another one of the boys wrote that he missed his dad, but said he did not miss how his life used to be. He did not miss Corey. He said it just like that. A child. Said it plainly and meant every word. Eric's sister stood up and spoke about her brother with the kind of love that only comes from years of knowing someone. She said that despite everything Eric gave, his life was taken from him. Not by a stranger, but by a person he should have been able to trust. She asked the judge not to let her brother's life be worth nothing more than a 25-year punishment. She asked him to protect those boys from any possibility of Corey ever being able to reach them again. And then Corey spoke. She addressed her sons directly, told them she did not abandon them, that when they were ready, she would be waiting. She said she could accept them being upset about her personal choices, but on the murder charge, she was firm. Murder, no. Absolutely not. I will not accept that. And I will not be blamed for something I did not do. I will appeal and fight these charges no matter how long it takes. Period. She said it, in front of everyone. And then the judge spoke. A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free. Accordingly, Ms. Richens, based on your conviction on count 1, first-degree felony aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to life without parole. Life without parole.
The mother of 3 watched as her children's counselor read emotional letters they wrote to the judge.
I was 9 when my dad was murdered. What I would like to see happen if the perpetrator is convicted of the crime, I would like to see Corey get a life sentence.
Richens' case making national headlines when she was arrested for her husband Eric's murder after writing a children's book about grief.
I want the judge to know my dad was a good person and I miss my dad. I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be. I don't miss Corey, I will tell you that.
Prosecutors said that Richens slipped 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl into a cocktail that she made for her husband. They said Richens killed her husband for money while planning to start a new life with a new man. At the time of the murder, Richens' home flipping business was millions of dollars in debt. One by one, family members read victim impact statements.
Yet despite everything he gave, his life was taken from him, not by a stranger, but by a person he should have been able to trust.
He told me he would live his life through hell every single day of his life until his youngest was 18, because he believed Corey was the most evil person he had ever met. He knew that his sons did not like her.
Corey then speaking out.
The one thing I need you boys to know is I did not abandon you. I did not just walk out of your lives one day to never return, to never call, to never show up.
But prosecutors say she had plotted to murder her husband and had already made plans for a vacation with her boyfriend.
3 boys are out here growing up without their father. Not because of an accident, not because of illness, not because life just happens that way sometimes, but because the woman who was supposed to be a safe person in their home made a choice, a deliberate, premeditated, no turning back choice. And those boys are the ones carrying it. That is the part of this story that does not make the headline. The headline is the fentanyl. The headline is the children's book. The headline is the life sentence. But what lives past the headline are 3 kids who had to write letters to a judge asking for justice for their own father. Kids who had to sit in a courtroom and be strong in a way that grown adults struggle to be. Kids who were isolated from the very people who loved them, fed fear instead of comfort, and left to figure out what the truth even was. Eric's family asked the court not to let his life be worth nothing, and the court agreed. But a sentence does not give those boys their dad back. It does not undo the years of manipulation. It does not erase what they were told or untangle what they now believe. Justice happened in that courtroom. But healing? Healing is a much longer road, and those 3 boys are just beginning to walk it. Corey maintains her innocence. She has vowed to appeal. And maybe that fight will continue for years. But right now, today, she is not going home. She is not going on that vacation. She is not starting that new life she planned. And Eric's sons, whenever they are ready, still have family out there waiting for them. Family that never stopped. I said what I said. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Because cases like this do not just happen in Utah. They happen everywhere. And sometimes the person handing someone a drink is the last person anybody would suspect. Dark whispers. We see what others miss.